Welcome to Your Town. I'm Chef Wendy Brodie with Art of Food. My guest today is Liz Jacobs. She's a newcomer to the peninsula here, about 9 months, with a new restaurant we should all be so excited about, the Wild Fish Restaurant in Pacific Grove. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm learning that you're a food writer and that you just finished a wonderful event that was sponsored by the aquarium called Get Hooked. So we have a lot of fun things to talk about. Plus, we're going to meet your husband in the next segment. And so we'll save the cook for last.
There you go. Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to our neck of the woods.
Well, thanks. So, yeah, you mentioned food writing. That was something I started in England. We had our first restaurant in England on the West Coast in Devon. And whilst we were very close to fish, we didn't do only fish, but we worked with a lot of wonderful suppliers, farmers that raised pigs and cows and lambs, and farmers that grew our vegetables, and the local fishermen. And I just was so inspired by the people that we worked with who do an amazing job, and I felt that they were such heroes, and often for not a lot of financial remuneration, but they do it for passion. They have really high standards. They do something amazing for our community. And I was so inspired, I decided to write up some stories about them, and I sent it to our local paper, and they said, "This is terrific." And, you know, we wrote recipes to go with their produce and said how they could find them. And I think reflected my passion for sourcing food and the kind of fun of sharing it with everybody, local people that can enjoy local food. And that was, of course, the mission for our first restaurant. And then that's something that we are definitely carrying on here. We made not a straight line from England to here. We actually have only been here for 9 months in on the Monterey Peninsula.
Right.
We first came to Mendocino,
That's beautiful.
a really remote and amazingly magical place in
Yes.
California.
Yes.
It was kind of a story how we ended up there, but we found, we had several places fall through. We wanted to find a great place for a restaurant, and ended up one day outside a kind of a redwood shack on the side of a parking lot in the middle of nowhere on Highway 1. And my husband said, "This looks like a perfect place for a fish restaurant." And it was just in an awful, awful shape. And we found out who the landlord was there. Eventually, that's the one that worked out. And and he said, "This is the perfect fish restaurant." And for the record, I did say, this is an awful shack in the middle of nowhere. Who would ever come here for a restaurant? So he reminds me of that from time to time. But yeah, we pursued this dream, and it was our first fish restaurant. So we didn't really know a lot about doing just fish. We learned on the job, and it was really hard. Doing local fish is not as easy, I think, as doing some other projects. We found that a lot of the fishermen that we approached, and we went down to the docks, and we waited patiently for fishermen to come off their boats, and we ran up and said, "Hi, we're opening a fish restaurant. Would you like to be a supplier? Do you have a commercial license?" And we got brushed off so much. We were really skilled in the art of taking rejections.
Oh my goodness.
Because I think one of the interests, and this feeds directly into Get Hooked, so I'm really excited to talk about this, but they were saying very often, it's not worth us doing the paperwork because we can sell container loads of fish to Asian businessmen in the Embarcadero down in San Francisco, and that's what we do. So it took us some time to find fishermen that had the ethos that we do, which is, let's I don't know, the fish out there in the ocean that we see
Yes.
every day is our natural heritage. And let's get that fish on the table for local people. And let's support our local fishermen supporting local people. So, you know,
That's
we find,
wonderful.
yeah, I mean, it's like, well, it's like when you have any business or project or whatever, you want to get like-minded people on your team. And we realized that we needed to find like-minded fishermen, you know, people who really believe in that and going small scale and small scale enough for, you know, to support local businesses. So that was when it really started to work, is when we found some great fishermen. And yeah, so that was, well, it's 8 years ago now that we opened Wild Fish in Little River, which is right next to Mendocino on the Mendocino coast. And it's only a 10-table restaurant, and it's very, you sort of have to draw your elbows in and walk around the place. It's very small. It's perched right on the rocks over a headland, so it's extremely beautiful. But it's always full. Yeah, I would say Mendocino generally, and you know, that little place, we love it. It's very dear to our hearts. But the very frustrating problem of turning away hundreds of people every week in the summer made us think, well, let's expand. Let's, you know, we first tried to go through planning and expand the restaurant and so on. And it's the most highly protected kind of zoning there. It's on a scenic headland. Yeah, well, scenic headlands are very protected, and which is okay. I mean, at least there's not a, you know, fast food restaurant right in the middle of there. But so we looked at lots of different places, and we're big jazz fans, and we have yearly tickets. We come every year to Monterey, which happens to be when our wedding anniversary is, and our tradition is that we come a day early and we eat in a beautiful restaurant, and then we just enjoy jazz all weekend. And we maybe had too much wine on that last year's anniversary dinner, and we, you know, my husband Kelvin went online and said, gee, there's this restaurant for sale. It's perfect. It's just, you know, and, you know, we need to buy this. And I, you know, it took me completely by surprise, but then I fell in love with it too. So, so we opened last April, the very end of April. Here in Pacific Grove on Lighthouse Avenue, a really cute restaurant also, and we are doing the same thing. We're using local fishermen, we're using local farmers. We have an amazingly talented chef, Joshua Plesh, who goes to the farmers markets at least 3, sometimes 4 and 5 times a week. So he's always buying local vegetables. We've had farms say, you know, you can have all our Brussels sprouts. We'll harvest them every week for you. So we're working really closely with local farms and farmers, and really lovely local fishermen. And the kind of, so I mean, our mission is very much, let's get local fish on the table for local people. We even say on the menu where the fish comes from, the name of the fishing vessel if we can, the name of the fisherman, the point of landing, you know, sometimes the method of capture. So we're, you know, just to show that this is really what we're about.
Serious.
So we're
serious.
exactly, yeah, and it's often 24 hours out of the water or less, because we buy, you know, regularly all the time. So. So when Roger Burley of the Monterey Fisheries Trust phoned up and said, hey Liz, we're doing this initiative, it's Get Hooked Restaurant Week, it's about a celebration of local fish and getting local people to eat local fish, it was just, you know,
near and dear
dear to my heart, exactly. I was so excited, and we wholeheartedly jumped into that one, and it's the first, it was the 14th to the 21st of January. It's going to be the first of many. It's going to be an annual event. So they highlighted 2 fish in particular. We only use local fish, so you know, this time of year there's not as much fish as other times, but there's rock cod and sablefish. And not everyone knows these fish. So
Sable's a little oily or more oily.
yeah,
So I want you to also make us drool with the recipes that you
yes.
did.
Oh,
with that.
it's my pleasure. So we do, yeah, so for sablefish, which if everyone's scratching their head saying, well, I've never heard of that, how can that be my local fish? It's also known as black cod. It's also known as butterfish. And that's kind of the clue there, is it tastes extremely buttery.
Yes, I need to retract my oily, because even though oil and all of it is super, but the flavor of butter, so it's really
rich.
good. I didn't mean to put
It's yeah, no. I mean, as we all know, an added bonus is that it's the kind of oil that everyone, all the health
Needs,
gurus
yes.
tell you got to eat a lot of that. So, but yeah, so it's silky in texture as well. So I kind of think, there's a sort of obsession with pork belly, and seems to be everyone's favorite food. If you don't know sablefish, it is the pork belly of the fish world, because it's silky as well as buttery. So when you eat it, you have this amazing experience of it kind of melting in your mouth. And it is available all year round on the Monterey Peninsula. It's not got a short season like halibut or salmon or even Dungeness crab or whatever is your other favorite food. You can get it all year here. So it's kind of very typical of our coastal cuisine, and definitely one that you need to get to know. And our chef has a kind of a signature style for cooking it, which is I'll say it's easy. It's not, you need to know how to cook fish. You need to not. The only thing is don't overcook it.
Yes.
So a nice crisp skin. We leave the skin on because you get all the added flavor of the skin, and you don't have to eat it, but just
a lot of
in
people
parentheses,
make
it's
bacon out of it.
That's right.
So
it's
a wonderful added texture and flavor.
That's it. And I have to say, in Europe, it's considered the best part of the fish. This is where we started our cooking. So we kind of have the habit of do a nice crispy skin, well seasoned, and really enjoy eating that as well. He used Chef Joshua Plesh, he uses local vegetables with it, puree of parsnips or celery root or whatever happens to be nice and compatible with that, whatever he has in season from his farmers. He made a burnt onion dust to go with it, and it was a really balanced, delicious fish. And we're very happy to share recipes, by the way. We're not into that exclusive, no, it's secrets, we don't share. We love to share the love, and when people come to the restaurant, we're like, yeah, we'll get the chef out, and he can talk to you about how you can do this at home, or try, or do your version of it at home, so.
Well, really, I was raised by two artists, and I look at food the same way, but the thing that's a joy when you share the recipe, each person who does that recipe is going to put their own spirit or individuality.
Exactly. It's an art, and you infuse that with your.
You don't have to worry about it being copied.
Exactly. Everyone takes it at their own step.
And it's such
a
a
different
joy.
direction.
It's a way of communication that we all do with each other if we're open and interested and passionate.
Exactly. It's
okay. So your other fish was cod, right?
Oh yeah. So the other fish is rock cod, and it's a bit like the surname Smith. There are 96 species of rock cod in our ocean here, right outside the door. I think we had vermilion and chili pepper rock cod. There are two types of local fish for Get Hooked. And there's so many things you can do with it. It's your classic cod. It tastes like sunshine. I think that's the best way to describe the flavor of cod.
I'm going to remember that.
It's a white flaky fish. It's kind of sweet, and we like to do that whole on the bone because, you know, it's like one of our favorite styles of doing fish. When we travel all over the world, and a lot of times, you know, in Europe, you'll be in a restaurant and they'll bring out a whole fish and show you at the table and then take it away and cook it for you. And they say, oh, it's the best way to do fish. You get all the flavor of the head and the skin and the bones, and it really is delicious and fun to eat and so on. So it's something that we wanted to do in our restaurant. Whereas in Europe they often use striped sea bass. It's not a commercial fish over here. It's very hard to source striped sea bass. They're little. So you need something that's 1.5 to 2 pounds. And after like trying to get small sole and, you know, all sorts of different things, and we don't use farmed fish. We do, as the name suggests, we use wild fish. So we realized that you can source rock cod in that size, and so we have a thing going with our local fishermen. They save us the small ones, so it's a perfect size for one person. And we slash them, rub them with spices, stuff the cavity with aromatics, and then roast it on a cedar plank, so that you get a nice little bit of smokiness also from the cedar. And you get it on your plate, and the servers are all very well trained to hold your hand. And you know, if you've never eaten fish off the bone, don't worry about it.
They'll talk you through
yes,
it.
there's
That's great.
you have a safety net. It's okay. You'll learn. So we did the rock cod with again, Josh does that with a chimichurri, a red chimichurri that he's made, which is you know, acidic and garlicky and full of herbs, and that goes really nicely with this simple style of preparation of the fish. And yeah, and lots of vegetable sides from our local farmers. So it's a lovely feast. It's yeah.
Well, boy, we sure are lucky to have you down here, and I suppose
thank
you
you.
now have the commuting life between Mendocino and here.
Right. That was the downside. I remember when, you know, we were first thinking about this, we were thinking of all the positives, and then, you know, gradually we had to force ourselves to talk about, okay, the downside is it's six hours, you know, from door to door from these two restaurants. And then we thought, well, it's a beautiful drive, you know, and funnily enough, we look forward to those drives because we've discovered audiobooks.
I was going to say books on tape.
So because I
Great
never
story.
read anymore,
Yes.
you know, so I've really got in touch with some great books. And also it's quality time, you know, it's there's no cell reception on a lot of the road that we go on the
right.
coast. And so we get to talk, and that's a real treat also. So.
Well, I've recently been involved in a book club, and so I'll share a whole bunch of wonderful books that I never would have come in contact
taking notes.
with. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll share. Are there any days that the restaurant is closed here, or and
No,
is
we're
it
open.
lunch and
We're open
dinner?
every day. We are going to be opening for lunch. We have a lunch menu written up. We're just buying a little bit more equipment that we need, and we have a few staff members lined up. I think we need one more. So we will be opening for lunch shortly. I hate to say when exactly, but in the next month or so.
I understand.
But we're open every day from 5 for dinner.
Well, thank you. To be continued with your
Thank you.
husband, Calvin. So
Excellent.
thank you so much
Oh,
for coming.
thank you,
What
Wendy.
a treat. And
It's
I
a
look
pleasure.
forward to coming in.
Excellent. Thank you so much.